Hi, it's Shawnee Lavender here, and this is part two of my video series about people pleasing, and specifically people pleasing as a behavior that we moms exhibit. So in the first video, I defined people pleasing, what I was talking about, and I explained why it shows up in moms. And now I want to talk specifically about what are the problems with it. So I ended my last video talking about the noble intention about wanting to be caring and thoughtful and support those we love and nurture those we love. So again, there's a positive there. And there's many negatives. So even though there's a positive, I would strongly suggest that people pleasing is not serving you as a mom and is not serving the people that you're pleasing, as strange as that may sound at this point. And so it's something that I work with my clients on removing from their lives, because the other thing is that it, as you'll see when I talk about the problems, is it really contributes to so many negative aspects of interpersonal relationship and the stress and not fun things about family life. So that's what we're going to get to now. So first I want to talk about the problems that happen for us as the pleasers. So as the people pleasers, here are some of the things that happen for us when this is one of our default behaviors. Number one, and to me it's number one because it's top of my list, and it's also the one that to me has really the most serious ramifications for us as a pleaser. So as I mentioned with the definition, we are hypersensitive and alert to and catering to the needs and wants of others, and simultaneously ignoring our own needs and wants. Now, one of the reasons why we sometimes ignore those needs and wants is because the first problem that happens with being a pleaser is we lose touch with ourselves. So we may not even actually know what our own wants and needs are. Now, I'll give an example of this. What I used to notice several years back is that my default behavior with my husband around decisions was to ask him what did he want. So whether it was going out to dinner or what to have for dinner or where should we go on vacation or what should we name our cats, whatever it is. My default would be to ask him what he wanted. And then once he said what he wanted, then I would respond or react to that, yeah, I do want that. Sometimes I wouldn't even know, like sometimes he would do this, he would come back to me and say, well, what do you want? And it'd be like, don't ask me, I don't know. So that sense of I don't know, because I'm so not used to considering what I want. I'm so used to not tuning in to myself. I'm so used to ignoring when I hear a little voice inside saying, I want, or I need, got to tamp that down. I've got to be attending to others. So as a people pleaser, because we have this default of ignoring self, and even when we do hear what it is we want, or we have a sense of what we want, when we're relegating that always beneath the wants and needs of others, at some point, it's almost like, why even bother? So we lose a connection to ourselves. And to me, it's one of the most painful parts of people pleasing once you get down and look at it and you say, wait a minute, do I even know who I am? What are my wants? What are my dreams? What am I here for? So this is, to me, what contributes to part of what you'll hear moms talk about often, one of the struggles when they first become a mom, especially if like they had a career outside the home and things before they had a child or children, is they have this sense of, I feel lost. Who am I? What do I do? And so their life then revolves around their children. And part of that, I believe, is this idea of we get so focused in really this kind of, narrow way on others that we do lose touch with ourselves. So people pleasers we've already done that without being moms. So you really compound that problem then when you become a mom, because again, the cultural messages and a lot of our own socialization says, oh, now we need to really even be more focused on others and not on ourselves. So we lose touch with who we are. We may not even know who we are. So again, to me, that's bad news. It's just not a good thing. So I'm just mentioned this, and I'll just say it really plainly here. Another problem when we are a pleaser is that our own needs often go neglected. So we're used to putting other people first, others' priorities are up here. And so even if we're here, others' priorities, sorry, not in front of my face here, others' priorities keep going up here. And so we keep getting bumped down the ladder. And so at some point, there's some neglect often that goes on, whether it's neglecting our health, neglecting our spirituality, neglecting those things that really feed us and nourish us. So it's again, not working for us as pleasers. We end up often living other people's agendas. So we may find ourselves, if we do pleasing for long enough, we might find ourselves really dissatisfied with our own life, or even feeling a sense of loss, or like, wait a minute, whose life is this anyway? So that's that from, again, becoming disconnected from who we are and focusing so much on, well, what does that other person want? And sometimes those wants have to do with us. So we may be saying, oh, I didn't do this thing. And I've definitely had experience of this where it's like, oh, yeah, there were things that I didn't do in large part because I let my habitual people-pleasing prioritize somebody else's ideas for me over my own ideas. Another really negative effect, this is both for us and it certainly impacts our relationships, is resentment is a big issue for people pleasers. And my theory is that in part, we know inside, we know that this is not serving us. And so at some point what happens is, so we're pleasing, neglecting self, others first, others first, others first. So at some point, our self finally says, hey man, stop that crap. And you got to do it differently. And so that, hey man, stop that crap, that can come out directed at others. That can come directed at our children. It can be directed at our spouse. It can be directed at other people in our family, others that are close to us. And so we're really projecting, in many cases, onto them, although I'll talk about why they're actually doing some, they're contributing to this as well. They're contributing to the problem. In part, though, what we're doing is we're projecting onto them. We're neglecting ourselves. We're choosing others, putting ourselves last. At some point, we really feel that inwardly. And so we get mad or we get depressed, however it manifests in us. But in some way, there's a really negative emotional cost to it because we sense, this is not right. This is not in harmony. We're not sharing. We're not being equals. We're subjugating ourselves. So that can really contaminate our relationships. So I don't want that with my daughter. I don't want to have a sense of like, oh, she got all this and I never got anything. It's like, whoa, no, don't want to do that. So those are some of the things that in my mind, in my personal experience and working with my clients, what I see as the downsides of, that's not strong enough, as the real problems and damage that being a people pleaser does to us as the pleaser. Now, not only is it bad for you, now, some people would think, oh, well, but pleasing other people are really happy with it. And so it's good for them. They're not going to want you to stop doing it. There's some truth there in terms of, yeah, if you're always catering to others, part of them is going to be like, yeah, keep it up. However, I'm going to show you now that there are actually a lot of negative consequences for our children in particular, and those who really are on this receiving end of most of our people pleasing. Now, some of these will be, pretty universal. Some will be depending on that child and how they take our people pleasing behaviors. So these will vary. However, I want to share the ones that I think are negative impacts that our children experience. Sometimes our children have this sense of losing their voice and their autonomy because they don't end up needing to speak for themselves. Now, what I mean by that is if you are a mom who, in your people pleasing, one of the things you're doing is you're like a helicopter mom, right? So you're scanning, you're overseeing, and you're always sort of on lookout for what's needed over here, and well, how can I see, somebody's starting to get unhappy over here, so I want to do something to, keep them happy. So if we're in that mode, part of what can happen is our children don't have really the time, in this sense, to speak up for themselves. So they don't have the time to say, hey, Mom, could you help me with this? Or, hey, Mom, I'm going to go do this thing on my own, because we're alert and we're hyper alert and hypersensitive. We're in there, we're in there so fast that they haven't even had a chance to see if, is there an issue? And here's what I noticed in my experience in young motherhood or early motherhood. I wasn't young, I was in my late 30s, but early on in my parenting, I noticed that sometimes I would see my daughter as a toddler. So maybe she'd be struggling with something, like she's building blocks or she's, doing some manipulatives with her hands. And so maybe I'd see her start to struggle. And rather than waiting for her to say something, if she was at that stage, or show some kind of like, I really can't do this, need your help type of, behavior, Mom, what I noticed is that I would sometimes jump in there and be like, oh, no, that piece goes with this, that those two go together, or put the red one and the blue one, or move the block over, it's leaning. So again, it's not a bad thing. I'm not some bad mom because I did that. And part of that, what I see is then that my daughter isn't really getting that space to be able to say, what do I need? What do I want in this moment? So we can jump in too quickly and they lose that sense of their voice and really knowing for themselves, like, do I need to speak up? Do I want to speak up? So that's the first negative that I see for our children. A second one, and this is sort of, again, on the flip side, is that our children can also develop a sense of entitlement and they can lack empathy. So again, this goes back to where I said it may depend on the personality of the child, how you manifest your people pleasing, how, what else is going on in your child's life. But what I see in this case is where children are seeing that mom is not taking care of herself, not doing things that sort of would require her to put herself higher on the priority list. So the message, our behaviors are always communicating things to other people around us. So part of the message that our children can get when we are pleasing, and ignoring ourselves, neglecting ourselves, is that they start to see, I must be more important than mom. Mom doesn't matter, but I matter. What mom wants, that's no big deal. But what I want was really important. So in that case, that can lead to children developing a real sense of entitlement, and that they don't really need to care about mom. She doesn't know. Somebody would then say, well, don't you think your mom would like to sit and read a book and not have anybody interrupt her? Oh, no, she doesn't care about that. Maybe she does, but if we're not ever showing that, if we're not ever saying, hey, this is what I want, part of our children are going to miss that chance to see that, we matter also. So that's another negative effect for our children. Another one, and this one to me is a really important one, is that what I said earlier, one of the ways that we learn this as mothers, we learned this when we were girls and we saw our moms doing these behaviors. And so if we keep doing them, we are taking that inheritance and we're passing it down another time, and it's getting really worn out and raggedy, and we should stop passing it on because it is really not a good heirloom. But that's what happens nonetheless. So if we keep doing this, and this is the model that we give our girls and our boys, here's what they're getting. Girls are getting that message, again, that they are less than, they are to be subjugated, they're not as important as men. And now this can still happen in same gender relationships, so it's not just a man-woman thing, but girls are going to be seeing that, and boys, what they're going to be seeing is men are more important, and what men want matter, but what girls want or what women want doesn't matter. To me, that's a really dangerous set of beliefs, because what it's saying is we're not equal. We are not partners in that sense of equal human beings. And for me, I can look out in the world and see lots of evidence of where this kind of thinking, not maybe by itself, but certainly combined with other beliefs, makes it easy for young girls to not feel comfortable saying no when they don't want to engage in sexual activity or other activity that they don't want to do. So they're wanting to look good and keep everybody happy. So I won't say that I'm not ready, or I don't want to, have sex with you or what. So girls are disempowered to speak for themselves and really say, you know what, I matter and I'm going to be treated in a respectful way. Boys or young men, on the sort of flip side, part of what they may take away from having a mom who's a people pleaser is that they don't need to care about the females in their life. So they don't need to ask permission for things. They don't need to really think about, well, how would this be for this girl? And so again, I can see this played out. So you look at things like date rape, regular non-date rape. Those to me, in part, have some roots in people pleasing, because we're showing that girls, their role, their function in life, or females, is to make others happy. And so boys and males, then in that case, they in part see girls as their vehicle to happiness, not as an equal human being. And I can tell you, I have a daughter who's almost 7. I absolutely do not want her to get that message. I want her to be very clear that she absolutely has absolute authority over herself, and what she wants is important and it matters. And if somebody is not willing to grant her that, doesn't mean that in our house she always gets her way. It's not that. If somebody, though, that she's interacting with thinks in some way that that's wrong, or wants to make her wrong for wanting what she wants, then that person is not somebody that I want her to feel comfortable being with. I want her to very quickly know that's the end of conversation, end of relationship, because that's not the way relationships work. So a little bit of a soapbox there, and yet I think it's really important for us to see these connections that happen, again, from a way of being as a mom that we are not really serving our children. So yeah, when you have a newborn, they are needy. They need us. So yes, they need to really come first in most respects then, when they're hungry, it's not eat your meal first and then feed them. It's they need to be fed. You can eat at the same time, but they need to be fed. So there is that piece. But beyond that, really, there is the piece of people pleasing doesn't serve us as the pleasers, nor does it actually serve the people that we are pleasing. So that's my soapbox moment. I do have another negative that I want to share, though, before completing this piece. So the other thing I see happen when moms are pleasers is that the rest of the family, remember I talked about that we're always communicating to people sort of how they can relate to us. So if we are always saying, oh no, I'll take the last piece, or, oh, I don't need any of that. No, I don't need a nap. No, mom can stay up, whatever we're doing. When we're doing that, part of what the people around us are going to start to believe is that mom doesn't need anything. And so when they couple that, or when that gets added into sort of, we're always, we're on top of it. We're taking care of you over here, and we're taking care of this. Now we're taking care of the carpool, and now we're paying the bills, and now we're taking care of this. So when we are doing all these things to keep everything running and smooth and working and, keep everybody happy, then part of what happens is the people around us start to think that we are indispensable. Now, I know some of us, we like to think that, and it's nice, it's ego stroking to think, oh, they would die without me, the house would burn down. We don't want it. This is part of the stress that moms feel. They are like, I'm overwhelmed. I have so much to do and nobody's helping me out. Part of that's self-imposed. It's the bad news, folks. It's something that we are contributing to our own stress when we are a pleaser, because we are always in there. We're always in everybody's business. We're getting it done. And so nobody else really at some level needs to take responsibility and step up and say, hey, I can do this piece, or looks like you could use a break. So let me give an example of this from my own life to make it really concrete. So when my daughter was about 3.5, my husband was with her in the bathroom while she was taking a bath, and he was helping her finish up. And I was just in the next room, and I heard him say something to the effect of, well, let me, let's drain the tub and let me get your towel. Let me find your towel. I almost said, it's on the back of the door, because I knew that's where it was hanging. That's where it hung. That's where it was. I caught myself, though, because in that moment, what I thankfully got was, they don't need me to say that. They can find the towel, or they cannot find a towel. They can use another towel. And if they can't do that, or they don't, they can step forward and say, hey, Shawnee, do you know where a towel is? So they could call on me if they needed me. But my habitual people pleasing almost jumped in there and was like, oh, here's where it is, honey. Let me help you out. And I'm not saying that wouldn't have been nice and things like that. What I saw, though, for myself was that I was inserting myself into a situation where I didn't need to be. And so most moms I see do this, and they don't realize it because, again, it's unconscious. And so when moms are coming to me saying, I'm feeling stressed out, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm pissed at my kids, I'm pissed at my spouse because I'm doing every flippin' thing around here, part of it, for almost all of them, will be part of the solution is resolving the people-pleasing habit, because that's part of their contribution to it. So other people are doing their part, so everybody's creating it together. Moms, though, who are people-pleasers, part of that people-pleasing contributes to other people having the sense of, we're going to fall apart without you, and we can't do anything without you. And so I know you don't want that for the people in your life. So that's another negative. So there's lots of negatives for ourselves as the pleasers, and contrary to popular belief, there are a lot of negatives for people pleasing. For the people who are getting pleased, it's not actually working for them in the long run either. So that's what I wanted to say in this part of the video series. And in a minute, you'll have a chance to check out the third and final part of the series, where I talk a little bit more about people pleasing and how it relates to the common parenting challenges that we have, and what you can do about it to make it better, so that you're not suffering the negative effects of people pleasing, nor are your children. So thanks for watching, and look out for part 3 of the people-pleasing video series.